Podcast number 1, The Great War, the war to end all wars. Essential questions. Why was this war fought? What events caused World War I? Why was this war called the war to end all wars? And did anybody really win? How did World War I set the stage for World War II? Causes of World War I can be described in a mnemonic device labeled maniac. All these countries were acting like maniacs. The first one we see is M, militarism. Coming out of the Industrial Revolution and the new Bessemer process of making steel much more affordable and cheap, countries start to glorify the military and compete for power and build their military up with these new technological advancements such as tanks, machine guns, airplanes, submarines, etc. The A stands for alliances. Different nations ally with each other for mutual protection, protection being the key word. They are there to help each other out in times of crisis. There are many different alliances formed in World War I, and they come to really help shape the rest of the world that we live in today. N stands for nationalism. This was one of the most important, which is a pride in one's country and culture. This is an example of this would be you doing the Pledge of Allegiance every morning. After 9/11 happened, the recruitment numbers of the Army rose significantly. This is an example of nationalism, a people having a pride in one's country and culture. The I stands for imperialism, which is competition for overseas territory and raw materials in new markets. Here I will show you examples of imperialism. Here we see Africa. All these other nations, Portugal, Italy, Germany, Great Britain, Belgium, France, and Spain, pulling on Africa because they are competing for the raw materials that Africa is able to give them, such as gold, lumber, and silver. Here we also see an image of England with its hand over India, Egypt, Malta, Gibraltar, Ireland. England here wanting to dominate the rest of the world. This is an example of imperialism. A stands for anarchy. There was no organization capable of settling major disputes among nations, such as today we have the United Nations. When we went to war, wanted to go to war with Iraq in 2003, we had to ask the United Nations coalition for permission. This is how they were acting like maniacs. There was anarchy. Every countries that allied with each other got together and declared war on their enemies. And last but not least was the crisis. This was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria by the Serbian nationalists. This is the spark for World War I. Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his family, and the man who shot him and created the spark that led to World War I. Here's a map. Here's the Austro-Hungarian Empire, where Franz Ferdinand controlled. Serbia to the south. Russia to the northeast, which will become a major player in World War I, as well as Germany, which will become the biggest player in World War I, along with France and Great Britain. This concludes podcast number 1. I will talk about the chain reactions of World War I in the next podcast.